Welcome back to another episode of Music That Matters, a separate yet equally as enjoyable offshoot of Different Strings, a guitar adjacent podcast. I am your host, Wes, and I'm here with my good friend, Andy. Say hello, Andy, please.
Oh my God, hi.
That was better. The longer pause made that. So before we get into our Music That Matters album, which is an album you chose, and it goes along
Yay.
with our concept albums episode,
Mhm.
please tell everybody how they can find us on their internet.
Again? All right.
Again, one more time.
Every week. Please visit us. All right, let me start over. Please visit us at differentstringspodcast.com or email us your questions or topic ideas at contact@differentstringspodcast.com. And good news, your racist uncle found us on Facebook at Different Strings Podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, please engage, comment, like, subscribe, hit the bell, comment, do all the things that the YouTube algorithm wants you to do. Please subscribe to Different Strings Podcast wherever you consume such media like Spotify and I don't know, iHeartRadio and Apple and all that stuff, so you don't miss a jam-packed episode. And finally, did you know that our very own Wes has a solo project? Yes, he does. It's called Hypersonic Secret. They just released their first EP. It is called Project Mayhem, and it's available on Bandcamp. So please check out hypersonicsecret.bandcamp.com to pick up a copy of this amazing surf adjacent rock and roll album. Please and thank you.
Now we're going to get into this concept album, which I'm going to say the name of, and you're going to tell us all about it
Okay.
because it's your choice and frankly your wheelhouse. This is your band.
Okay.
And I will tell you before I say the name of the album and the band,
Mm-hmm.
I thought all of their albums were concept albums, right? And listening to this album did not change my mind about that.
No. Yeah, certainly a lot of their albums have been concept albums, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So the year is 2002. The
Mhm.
band is Dream Theater, and the
Mm.
album is 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence.
Yes, it
Andy,
is.
take it away.
Yeah, so this is Dream Theater's second album with keyboard player Jordan Rudess. Their first album with Jordan, Scenes from the Memory, was in fact a concept album. Um,
Crazy.
yeah, crazy. So the this is a double album. Okay. The
Because one album cannot hold a concept from Dream Theater.
right. The title track, 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence, is it's one track theoretically that spans the entire second disc. One
Wow.
track, the entire disc.
So it's
Now,
like 64 minutes or something?
it's long. It is very long. But it isn't just one long song. It's one track, but it's a conceptual piece divided into 8 movements, very
Movements. Gotcha.
orchestral. Okay. And each movement or song explores different aspects of mental health, right? So they delve into themes such as bipolar disorder and schizophrenia and PTSD and the like. Okay. So that's the second disc. The entire disc is one track, but it's composed of 8 movements. The entire concept of the album is the exploration of the human mind and the turbulence of inner struggles.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So the first song, the very first song is called Glass Prison. And Glass
Yes.
Prison is the first song that is by Mike Portnoy. The lyrics are by Mike, and it is about his struggles with alcoholism.
Okay.
Glass Prison.
Yeah.
It's
Gotcha.
yeah, it's 3 parts. Glass Prison was the first part. The second part was This Dying Soul on Train of Thought. And forgive me, fans, Dream Theater fans, for forgetting the third part. It is on the album Following Train of Thought. I don't remember it off the top of my head. It is, in fact, though, a great song. I just don't remember the name. Sorry, I'm not prepared for that. I didn't think I was going to
That's all
get
right.
that deep into this. Okay. So, um, other notable songs on the first disc, one of them you mentioned in your notes is called um, The Great Debate, which is lyrically the song is about the it's discussing the benefits and drawbacks of stem cell research,
Okay.
which in 2002 was a highly controversial
Hot,
and
hot topic.
hot topic, right? Um, so the song doesn't take a stand. It doesn't pick a side,
Huh.
which I find that cool. Like they could have they could have taken a stand on the song, but the song called The Great Debate. So they debate both sides. There's parts of the song are from the anti side and parts of the song are from the pro side. They leave it to you to make your decision, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So that's really the concept of the album. It doesn't tell a story like it doesn't tell a story like Scenes from a Memory does, but it is a concept album in the fact that there is a underlying and theme that ties all of the songs together. Um, so that's the lyrical theme. Musically, it is. I mean, there isn't a style of music this album doesn't cover. It's
Gotcha. I would agree
inc-
to that.
it is
Well,
just
I
yes, go
don't
ahead,
think they do any funk.
or country. Um, it is. It, I've always I've str- I am of the opinion that when Jordan joined the band, Dream Theater became Dream Theater. I'm not saying Images and Words wasn't a great album. It
Good.
was, but the combination of Jordan getting him in this band and the interplay between Jordan and John, it it, it just took Dream Theater to a level that I it's just incredible. The they were a great prog metal band, and then they just became this I don't know them
Institution.
thematic orchestral.
Yeah.
Like you can see the first two albums out of the gate, concept album, long songs, movements. There's a song on here called Overture, which, as you pointed out, was basically like as if they were trying to get the London Philharmonic to do it. It's They really did stretch into not only complex territory, because I think it's safe to say Jordan is just one of the most skilled, schooled, talented keyboard players and also an incredible guitar player by any stretch. He's ridiculous. Um,
Yeah.
but so you take things like the first Dream Theater albums with Kevin on keys, Kevin Moore. Kevin was a great player, but he couldn't do what like John was this lightning fast guitar player, and Kevin couldn't duplicate
That's just
that.
not who he was. Yeah.
No, he was great with textures and things like that. Whereas Jordan's like having a second guitar player. So at times, a lot of times he's still doing the keyboard thing. So anyway, this album just it took what they had done with scenes and just it exponentially increased like a hundredfold, a millionfold, just from a technical perspective, from a thematic perspective. And then I strongly believe Octavarium even continued that.
Yeah.
Octavarium is nuts. So, um, so let's talk gear because we're a guitar podcast. Um,
Yeah. And before we jump into that, I want to say
yeah.
I never listened to this album until you said you wanted to use it for music that matters.
Hmm.
And the reason I never listened to it is because the second disc is a 45-minute long song.
It
And
is.
I I wasn't I never felt that I was up for that.
Yeah.
And I like that even though there's kind of an overall concept,
Hmm.
they split off the hard concept part of it into its own album.
Hmm.
I feel like I could listen to the first disc a lot,
Hmm.
right? I actually liked much of the first disc. I didn't
Yeah.
connect it as heavily with the second disc, probably because, as I explained in a previous episode, I have a hard time understanding lyrics.
Yeah.
So I have to listen to something a lot to understand the story.
Hmm.
But my attention span as I age is so much shorter that I don't have the patience to
Yeah.
listen to an album 1,600 times to get the story down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So
let's talk gear.
yeah, so let's talk gear. So, John Petrucci is a little, I hate to say this because he is a one of my favorite guitar players. Um, he's a little predictable from the gear department. So in Dream Theater's infancy, he was an Ibanez guy. Um,
Right.
and I believe no, I don't believe, I know when they recorded scenes from a memory, he had just released or was about to release his first signature with Ernie Ball, the first John Petrucci signature guitar. He had a signature guitar with Ibanez. It
Mhm.
was based on the RG. It had the Picasso graphics and two
Right.
custom DiMarzios that changed a couple times. The Ernie Ball Music Man was a pretty big departure for him in a couple ways. One, didn't have a locking tremolo.
Really?
Yeah, he has not had a guitar with a locking tremolo as a signature model since 2001, 2000.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yep, no locking. Um, it has locking tuners and it has
Okay.
a very stylish Ernie Ball bridge, but no locking nut. Um,
Crazy.
Yeah. Now his guitars also featured. eh, Now you could get them with this and without this, which I liked.
Okay.
Um, they had piezo pickups. Okay. So that was new for him as far as the signature is concerned. Also, the guitars themselves were, I mean, the Ernie Ball necks are very different from Ibanez. Um, he still has a flat radius, still had unfinished
Yeah.
neck, but the body was highly carved, very distinct. And um, the three-way switch was in a position because John is his style, he flips back and forth between bridge and neck, bridge and neck, bridge and neck in the
Yeah,
same
he
style
does.
multiple times. Yeah, he uses the pickup switch like its own instrument, like an effect almost. So it was put in a place where he could do that fairly quickly while he's picking. It's very, very cool design. I owned a couple in my day. They were really neat guitars. He didn't, however, have a seven string yet. He only had the six string. And there was a song on Scenes that had a seven string. Um,
Okay.
and so he wound up using his Ibanez for that. He had an Ibanez seven string. By this album, he was strictly using Ernie balls all the way through. He did
Okay.
have his iconic, now iconic, in the Ernie Ball Music Man signature. He also used the first seven string, Ernie Ball seven string on this album. And I didn't know this till recently. He used a silhouette bass guitar, an Ernie Ball silhouette bass guitar, but strung it like a baritone.
Nice.
And he used that on one of the songs on the first disc.
Yeah.
Um,
One of the things I think is really cool about the Majesty guitar, that's the
mhm.
model name, right? Majesty
Well, that's the
is
latest one. The latest
that's the
one's called the
latest one.
Majesty. Yep.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So this may not be the way that the older ones were made, but um there's like a maple insert
Hmm.
in the mahogany body.
Yes, and that actually was on these guitars, or not. No, I'm sorry, that's new. The first ones were basswood.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
just like
Majesties.
his Ibanez.
Yep, the Majesties are. They have that maple cap running down the center, and then
Yeah, I think
wings.
that's a really interesting design aesthetic. And
Hmm.
I remember seeing a video where he was explaining why they did that, and it just seemed like really cool. Even though it obviously it makes the construction of the guitars a little more difficult, which makes them a little more expensive, but it's a
Hmm.
really cool no compromise thing that Ernie Ball is doing for him.
Yeah.
And I looked him up on the Ernie Ball website, and they now have a fan fret hardtail 8-string Majesty.
Really?
Yeah. I'm
Wow.
sorry. I don't think they use fan fret anymore. I think they call it multi-scale.
Yes, they do.
Okay, there's a multi-scale hardtail 8-string, and it looks exactly like the other ones,
Yeah, that's
except
cool.
yeah, hardtail and multi-scale.
Well, if they have them, that could mean he's using them on this new album. So it'd be interesting to
Yeah.
see. Yeah. Um, so the other thing that John is very well known for is his use of Mesa Boogie stuff. Now, in early
Yeah.
days, he was a Triaxis fan, and Triaxis was their MIDI preamp.
Hmm.
But as the days progressed, certainly for scenes from a memory, and on this album as well, he used almost exclusively Mark II C pluses. Um,
Great amps. Great amps.
I mean,
And
seriously,
not necessarily the first thing I would think of for his kind of high gain application.
yeah. But they're capable of a lot of gain, and with the
Oh
right
yeah.
pedal in front of it, it's insane. It's just like liquid sustain. He also did, my understanding, use a dual rectifier on places on this album for texture, and I do believe he enjoyed playing the dual rectifier so much that he went on to help Mesa develop the Road King, which he used
Oh,
exclusively
cool.
on his solo album.
Nice.
Yeah,
Which I have a copy of, and it is a pretty fantastic album.
yeah, it's pretty cool. Um, on tour for this album, Ernie Ball made John a one-off double neck guitar. I have never seen anything like this. It is a 12 string on top, a 6 string on bottom. It looks like his guitars, only double neck. And he used it on um he used it on the title track. And I also saw in the same video where he unleashes that thing that he had a Framptone talk box for a solo in home, but that's besides the
Oh,
point.
cool.
Okay. So John Mayung, on the other hand, he was using Yamaha. In fact, I believe he had a signature bass with Yamaha towards the
He
end.
did it. It was based on their RBX line,
Yep.
and it was a 6-string. There are 4, 5, and 6-string versions of it.
Yep.
The 6-string version was called the John Myung model.
Yep. So I know he was using those. I know he switched over to the bongo at some point. I know he was using some Sterling, some Stingrays in the
Yeah,
studio, but he had an agreement with Yamaha, so he was using Yamahas. But I know that there was some Stingrays in the studio. That's all I'm saying. And
yeah,
eventually he switched to the bongo in 2007, as you adeptly pointed out. As far as
yeah.
amplification goes, I think he was using Mesas the whole time.
I'm pretty sure I remember hearing that. And I got to say, I think the bongo is probably one of the uglier basses, and I don't understand why it's so. I've never played one. I've seen several, even up close,
Uh-huh.
but I think they're just bizarre looking.
They are.
The first one I saw was on tour with Steve Morse. He was touring behind one of his
Mm-hmm.
solo albums,
Mm-hmm.
and his bass player had one. And I see that guy, I forget his name, but I see him every time I see him, he's playing a bongo bass.
Yeah.
So he loves it too. I think the
Dave,
cool
was
thing
he
about,
Dave LaRue? Is that who you're talking about?
I think it is, yeah, Dave LaRue.
Okay. He also
Um,
played on John Petrucci's solo record.
yes, he did.
Yeah.
So Myung switched to the bongo officially in 2007,
Hmm.
Up to that point, he was still using his Yamahas. What I think is really cool, and this has nothing to do with this album, I just think it's really cool,
Hmm.
is he took the 5-string bongo and made it a 6-string, didn't change the dimensions. So it has a tighter string spacing, which means a
Oh,
narrower neck. So it has a 5-string width, but a 6-string bass.
I like
And I
that.
think that for normal people, that probably makes it a lot more playable.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, okay, we've talked about the record, we talked about the gear. Um, I won't do it like a track by track, what I think of it.
Okay.
I will say, if you're listening slash watching and you're even remotely a Dream Theater fan, you might already know about this album. But if you are not, give it a listen anyway. Um, I would be, I would say just because the lyrical content, it still speaks to something very important today, which is mental health and different struggles.
Yeah.
I happen to resonate, the album resonates with me very deeply as someone who has been on a journey of self-discovery and healing for many years. The album really resonates with me. So why it matters to me is one, it's Dream Theater. Two, it's musically dazzling. Three, I really like the lyrical material, the lyric content. I do think one of the things that Mike Portnoy brought to this band, besides just absolutely ridiculous drumming and incredible energy, is his lyric content. Mike Portnoy was a really great lyric writer. Um, he did not shy away from complex topics. He didn't shy away from difficult conversations. He was very outspoken. He's kind of a cool dude. He's very opinionated, but he's also, matured
What?
over the years. I know. Um, and I can't help but feel like when he left, that was something they deeply missed. Um,
Yeah.
he was just there was that's to me, although Mangini was a phenomenal drummer, um,
And
Portnoy
still
was
is.
just
He's not dead.
absolutely just the lyric content. And the other thing that if you'll listen to Dream Theater records, starting with like, I don't know, maybe Scenes from a Memory, you start hearing Mike a lot singing.
Really?
If you listen to Glass Prison again, a lot of those vocals are Mike.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I thought it was just Jamie Labrie kind of exploring his tonality capabilities.
Nope. If you listen to the Glass Prison, I think during the second part, you hear like a call and response vocal part.
Yeah.
Mike is the guy who's like super angry.
Huh. I'll have
Yeah.
to go back and listen to that.
Yeah. You can almost hear, if you know what Mike sounds like when he talks, you can almost hear the New York coming out.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
So,
I'm glad you explained this story to me because, I've only listened to this album twice and it was all today and I've got a lot of other stuff going on in my life. So,
yeah,
especially right now, just, some stuff we don't need to
stuff.
get into it. Uh, that was attracting my attention. So I didn't pay as close attention to it as I probably should have. And I had no idea what the story was, what the concept was. So I needed that explanation.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like they probably could have cut 10%, 10 to 15% of this album and it still would have been awesome.
You could almost say that about almost every Dream Theater record.
Yeah, that's I'll give you that one. I liked what I was hearing
Mhm.
except for Overture, which now that I know it was probably heavily influenced by Rudess, I thought that that stood out on the album as something that didn't sound like Dream Theater,
Mhm.
or at least didn't sound like my understanding of Dream Theater. So,
Mhm.
and this is really a criticism that I have of prog bands in general, that they can skew a little self-indulgent.
Oh, of
Um,
course.
and it's hard for me sometimes when I feel like a band is showing how much education they have. Not that education is a bad thing, but sometimes it comes across as modes for mode's sake.
Mhm.
And that's just from me. That is a general criticism of prog music overall. And I think with all the hundreds and hundreds of minutes of music that Dream Theater has recorded, that's a fraction
Hmm.
of the stuff. The vast majority of what I've ever heard from Dream Theater is musical and melodic,
Hmm.
and you know, not wanky.
Yeah.
Um, so those parts to me are what pop out,
Hmm.
right? Because like if I was the producer, I would have cut those things.
Hmm.
But I also think if you cut those things, you're shortchanging Dream Theater's biggest fans.
Well, and I mean, if you it it's very clear that the boys had a vision
Yeah.
for that second disc, right?
Yeah. And
And they
kudos to
carried,
them for sticking to it and
yeah,
executing it. Because can you imagine writing a cohesive 45-minute song in movements?
exactly. And Overture, if you listen to the, if I'm not saying you didn't do this, but I'm saying if one does
Right.
this, if you listen to Overture and then the rest of that entire disc, Overture
The themes
can
come back.
exactly. And they set out to do exactly what they did. They wrote of orchestral thematic piece. Start It's called Overture for a reason because it
Yeah.
covers all of the themes from, just like in a musical, you know.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, they had a vision, they stuck to it 100%. And although I agree with you that as a song, Overture doesn't suck me in like, oh, what a great Dream Theater song, but it does what it's supposed to do for the second disc, and I can
Yeah.
forgive him for that. But when I
And
listen
it,
to it, I would, half the time I skip it, half the time I don't.
well, and it's a good palate cleanser between after the first disc,
Uh-huh.
and to really let you know something different is about to happen.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. So from that perspective, it works.
Yeah,
It's just to me, it was the least Dream Theater thing I'd ever heard Dream Theater do.
I'm with you. Um, so I mean, it I think, in my humble opinion, that between the musicianship, the, for me, the self-indulgence, but the reaching, right? The
Yeah.
having a vision and sticking to it, taking the risks, um, just really putting themselves out there, and also that very important lyric content. To me, this is an album that matters. I listen to it a lot. In particular, I enjoy listening to The Class Prison and the other songs in the trilogy, knowing that Mike beat alcoholism.
Yeah.
Like, to me, I'm so glad that he was able to find comfort in the 12 steps and do what he needed to do to make amends. And, you know, it's just, things could have gone really bad for Mike and he turned it around, which is nice. And now, during, I think it was either during or after the pandemic, or he released a video with him and his daughter singing together, playing together. And I was like,
Nice.
yeah, it's nice to see Mike being Mike and being happy. Like, I love that for him because, like I say, he was a cool dude, and him not being in Dream Theater was like, that kind of sucks, especially because of how it happened. I'm really glad he's back in. I'm hoping he can turn them around because I haven't liked the Dream Theater record in 10 years. Um, I'm hoping he can breathe some new life into them because, I mean, James LeBray just turned 61. Like,
Wow.
I know, it's time. It might be time. He's the old man. It's getting close to quitting time for those boys. I'm just saying, like, you know.
Well,
So, but
maybe Petrucci will be the next guitar player in Motley Crue.
sure, why not? Dogs of War just came out. Are you going to listen to that? Oh
I got
no,
no.
because no.
I got you with that one.
Yeah, you did.
One thing I will say about Dream Theater, and I even though I don't listen, I don't have a lot of their albums, and I don't listen to them heavily. I've always respected them as a band because I feel like when they sit down to plan an album and start writing it,
Hmm.
they always set the target a little outside their reach,
Okay.
and then they work to that target. So they're
Hmm.
always moving forward, and they're always growing, and they're always pushing themselves.
Hmm.
And that to me, even though you can listen to their first album and listen to their last album and you can tell it's the same band, but they don't ever, they're not satisfied with putting out the same album.
Over and over again.
Yeah. Now, some people who aren't familiar with their material may not agree with me on that statement. But when you look at a band like AC/DC, who has definitely put out the same album over and over and over again, and it is a fantastic album every time they release it. Don't get me wrong. Dream Theater is not that band.
No.
AC/DC does what it does, and they do it amazingly well, as does Dream Theater. And what Dream Theater does is exceed their grasp every time.
Right. What are we going to do this time? It's not,
Yeah.
let's go back to what we know. Yeah, I'm with you. There's always something new to listen to.
Yeah. And I find Dream Theater music challenging to listen to, which is not necessarily what everybody wants in a band, but
Mhm.
that's the thing that I value about them. When I feel like a real musician, I listen to Booker T and the MGs, I listen to Dream Theater, I listen to Mastodon,
Mhm.
when I'm feeling like a real musician. So they got that going for them.
I
Thanks,
like it.
guys.
Yeah. All right. So Dream Theater, 6 degrees of inner turbulence. Get it. Get your mind blown. And while you're getting your mind blown, please visit us at differentstringspodcast.com or
Nice
email your
segue.
questions or topic ideas to contact at differentstringspodcast.com. And good news, we are also on the Facebooks. Go to Different Strings Podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, hit the bell, engage with us. Tell us why you think this is the greatest album of all time. And also, please subscribe to Different Strings Podcast wherever you consume this media, like Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcasts and stuff like that. And I don't know if you guys know this or not, but Wes is a guitar player, and he did a solo
You've heard.
project called he had a little surf thing called Hypersonic Secret, and they just released their first EP. It is called Project Holy Mayhem. Project Mayhem. It is available on Bandcamp, so please go to hypersonicsecret.bandcamp.com. So many dots. And you pick up a copy of that awesome slab instrumental surf adjacent rock and roll. Please and thank you. Do us a solid and do that. Okay. Thank you.
And we'll catch you next time. Next music that matters will be my choice. And I'm going to go back to an all guitar album.
Woo, I'm excited. All right. Bye.